Een hele goede namiddag.
A very good afternoon, everybody.
From all over the world. We zijn bijzonder blij, dames en heren, dat u met zoveel de weg...
We are very pleased, ladies and gentlemen, that you are here in such large numbers for this online symposium on endocrine disruptors organized by the Mutuality Libres in combination
to facilitate.
Prévu la traduction.
This afternoon we will have simultaneous translation in French, English and Dutch.
Language you prefer to follow this symposium. En we hebben een aantal top.
And we've got some great specialists here, live here in this very corona-proof studio to talk about endocrine disruption chemicals. Some people will be here live, others will call in online.
We would like this afternoon to be as interactive as possible. So we invite you to share your thoughts, your questions via the chat. We will answer all questions either this afternoon during the debate or afterwards via email. So do not forget to give us your name.
Heel erg fijn vinden.
And of course, we would like it very much if you could talk about this event on social media. You can do that on 2 Twitter accounts that have been created especially for this event, one in French, one in Dutch, and you see them on the screen. If you go for other social media, fine, but do mention the hashtag of this event.
Now a few words for our general practitioners who want to get the accreditation. This afternoon, quite often you will see pop-up windows opening on your screen. You just have to confirm your presence to be able to continue viewing this show.
So if you want accreditation, and there are quite a lot of doctors or GPs that are following this afternoon, we will ask you in pop-up screens to confirm that you're there. That way we know that you're still following.
To get started, don't you? Let me introduce our first guest to you. Pour introduire cet après-midi de réflexion.
And to start this afternoon of questions and debate, we have the great pleasure to welcome the Brussels Minister in charge of Health and Environment, Mr. Alain Maron, who is joining us online. The issue of exposure to endocrine disruptors is among his competencies. Therefore, this topic is, of course, his responsibility.
Bonjour.
Good afternoon to all of you.
First of all, I would like to thank the Mutuality Libres for organizing this virtual meeting on such an important topic that is still unknown to a lot of healthcare workers and the public at large.
And as you know very well, more and more studies show the impact of endocrine disruptors on our health. The mechanisms through which those chemical substances interfere with our health and animals' health are only just starting to be understood. And only a few chemical substances have been studied out of the thousands of molecules being used by the industry. However, if we believe what we know already based on the health of our population, such as the increase of diabetes, overweight, reduction of masculine fertility, etc., we can only conclude that it is high time for us to wonder and probably to act in order to strongly reduce those chemical pollutants that are in our environment. Those pollutants are indeed present, and we do not see them in our daily activities, our moves, our food, furniture, cleaning projects, as well as some health and beauty products. It is amazing. At the same time, there are also many possibilities for us to act, but we first need to be aware of what is at stake, to identify and make sure that those possibilities are available for everyone and for us to accept, to adapt our behaviors. Each individual, properly informed, will have the possibility to reduce its exposure and therefore to use safe alternative solutions. You can, for example, replace the use of a plastic bottle by another infusion, another herbal tea that would be produced using water, for example. But first you need to be aware that those alternative solutions exist and that they are desirable from a social point of view. It's first at the individual level. Of course, we have to leave the choice to everyone, but that is not enough. We should also act at the regulatory point of view, political point of view, cultural point of view, to set an institutional framework that would support health and the different elements of health. You probably know it, but in Belgium, the responsibilities in health and environment are divided amongst the different levels of powers and the different competences, first at the federal level and then at the regional level. To coordinate the action in this regard, an interministry conference gathering the relevant ministers was put in place in 2003. Its activity has been evolving throughout the years. And the second Health and Environment National Plan was just concluded in 2018. It was mostly on professionals training, exotic mosquitoes, also the ozone plan, as well as monitoring of chemical substances in the human body. The third action plan that should come to light very soon, if the COVID-19 enables us to do so, should focus on the air quality issue, climate change, as well as endocrine disruptors. We need to give a new impetus to this inter-ministry conference. That's one of my priorities, because that is among the skills we need to fight against climate change, to fight against endocrine disruptors. These are federal or even European responsibilities. That is the reason why we have to work together at every level on those priorities, also, therefore, on endocrine disruptors. This said, I also want to act at the Brussels level in my area of competence, because for the first time in the history of the region, the person who is Minister of Health is also in charge of environment. It is me, and this is the first time it's happening at the regional level. So, considering this crossed competence, I tried to include in my action plan and to devote an important part of my activities to those issues, mostly endocrine disruptors, the issue that we are here to talk about today.
As Minister of the Environment, my administration is working on environmental risk factors by taking measures to improve air and water quality, to make sure that we have healthy and sustainable eating habits, and to reduce waste and make sure that cities are adapted to climate change.
Regarding the air quality, I work with my colleague Elke van der Bank, who is in charge of mobility in Brussels. We work on developing alternative solutions to individual cars in order to change and have a modal shift. And we also want to make sure that those vehicles that are still circulating in Brussels are, less contaminating. This is what we call the motor shift. We, for example, want to move towards electrical vehicles, which indeed do not produce emissions in a dense urban environment. The quality of the air is invisible. However, the European Environmental Agency estimates that there are about 10,000 deaths in Belgium each year. So we have to raise the awareness of the population. That's the reason why we started a partnership with the Bloomberg Foundation to measure the quality of the air in Brussels and to raise the awareness of Brussels inhabitants. Measures will be taken in more than 60 schools, and the teachers of more than 130 schools will be trained on air pollution issue inside as well as outdoors. Regarding water Now, apart from the blue grid, I want to increase the access to, fresh water in the city in order to avoid the use of industrial drinks. Regarding pesticides, I plan to strengthen the regional plan to reduce the individual use of pesticides, which are already forbidden in Brussels in public areas. Regarding food now, our strategy, which is called Good Food, will be a 2.0 strategy. We just launched the Good Food 2.0 strategies. It promotes short networks. It supports also agro-organic producers and wants to raise the awareness of the population regarding healthy food from the farm to the fork. This is, by the way, what is also being implemented by the European Union. This is what I plan to do as Minister for the Environment, and this is directly linked to the Brussels inhabitants' health. As Minister in charge of health, I want to raise the awareness of the population and of professionals on the issue of the environment on our health. The Observatory for Health and in the Brussels region. It is a public body at the level of the city of Brussels. So this observatory will soon publish a study on the main environmental consequences on health in Brussels. So after those first reports, we will focus on the air quality, noise, green spaces, etc. On top of that, Brussels Environment also has what we call a green ambulance in case someone has potentially health issues due to contaminants. This green ambulance will continue its work with a specific doctor. If a doctor identifies an issue, then the experts go there to try and identify what has been the source of this contamination. And very often the contamination is chemical, and it is due to the use of several chemical products. Together with the Society of Scientific Medicine and Mr. Paul Louis, who we'll listen to in a moment, we decided to continue training professionals on 4 main issues among 13. So air pollution, indoors and outdoors, endocrine disruptors, chemical products in our daily lives. To develop awareness-raising tools, we will work with the collective Dr. Coquelicot, and then other projects will, of course, continue and will be implemented afterwards. In Brussels, we also have a health promotion plan that will be assessed in 2022. I suggested we would explicitly include environmental issues as well as endocrine disruptors. So, as you can see, several actions have already been launched or are about to be launched. We are fully aware that this is not enough, and we believe that the growing awareness of all those issues related to these, linked to the survival of mankind, will accelerate the transition towards a more sober lifestyle, and also raise our awareness on different issues such as endocrine disruptors. So I'm delighted to be part of this symposium. It's one of these examples that show a greater awareness. I wish you a fruitful afternoon to build a healthier world. I apologize for not being able to stay with you much longer because I have 3 other meetings throughout the afternoon. So unfortunately, I won't be able to stay after 2 p.m. in this meeting. Of course, keep me posted, keep me informed of the conclusions, and the Dr. David Erco working in my cabinet will, by the way, attend the whole symposium. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hartelijk dank, meneer Maron.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maron, for being with us for a short while and to explain us what your plans are. We will continue straight away to the core of this meeting. So the issues related to endocrine disruptors are at really on the table for the mutualities.
So we now want to present the results of the study led by the Mutuality Libres. Those figures are being presented by Xavier Brenez, who is the Director General of Mutualités Libres, for the next 20 minutes.
Dames en heren, goedemiddag
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
à ce symposium des mutualités.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this symposium on endocrine disruptors. We are absolutely delighted to organize this symposium. Amongst the 10 priorities, we have health and environment, which is quite different from the topics we usually deal with within mutualities. So the endocrine disruptors are one of the issues related to the impact of the environment on our health. We are delighted to see that, well, there are more than 350 people following our webinars.
Welcome to you as well, and it shows and demonstrates the importance and the international importance, European importance on EDC. Alors vous voyez qu'ici on est dans une configuration qui est
So as you can see, this structure is quite different. Of course, we usually hold our symposiums in Anderlecht, but we, of course, today, due to COVID-19, we're using those new technologies, and I'm sure our exchanges, our discussions will be fruitful. And before getting to the core of the matter, I would like to thank all the speakers. Our speakers are experts in their field, and they will shed some light on this very complex issue of endocrine disruptors. And I also wanted to thank Hill, more specifically, who supported us throughout the preparation of this symposium, and without her, indeed, it would have been impossible. Within the Mutuality Libre, during our symposiums, we always try to include the point of view of the citizens. So this time, once again, we carried out a study to take and measure the opinion of citizens. That is a study we realized in June. 1,000 people were able to answer to this survey in order for us to have a representative survey from a statistical point of view. The first question we asked the Belgians was, what were their habits, what are their behaviors that expose them to endocrine disruptors? Here you can see a few figures on the screen. 37% of the respondents use pesticides of non-natural origin. 50% of the people use new clothes without washing them beforehand. Well, here a good piece of news. Well, 55% of the respondents use or declare that they use organic cleaning products, and 61% keep heating their food in plastic containers, which is not recommended. But before moving to the next slide, if you allow me, I would like to, carry out a little poll. We wanted to know what was the level of knowledge amongst the Belgians regarding endocrine disruptors. So I wanted to ask you, according to you, what is the percentage of Belgians that have never heard about endocrine disruptors? On your screen, you will have three possibilities: 25%, 48%, or 76%. So you will have a few seconds to answer this question. And by the way, I talked about the gestures, the behaviors that expose us, and you should know that 86% of the people regularly ventilate their house, they open the windows. 53% of the people also peel non-organic fruits and vegetables, and 26% of them eat organic food. So these are indeed, protective behaviors. That's it. I think we can already display the answers to the poll. If you could please display the answers on the screen for a moment. There you have it. So you can see some people are still doubting, are having some doubts and hesitating between 48 and 76. So the correct answer is indeed 48% of the people have never heard about endocrine disruptors before. So this is indeed quite a high percentage, and you can see there's a big discrepancy between the regions. It's quite impressive. It seems that inhabitants are more aware of endocrine disruptors in Brussels and in Wallonia, whereas in Flanders, 62% of the respondents have not heard about endocrine disruptors. So very briefly, a definition of an endocrine disruptor will probably be useful for the rest of the symposium. An endocrine disruptor is a chemical substance that is not produced by the human body, that disrupts the functioning of the hormonal system, and that has a negative and harmful impact on individual health. We also asked questions on the relationship between some types of products and the alleged presence of endocrine disruptors. So as you can see on the screen, people are more aware of the presence of those disruptors in pesticides. Then second category, you get packaging, food packaging, then care products, and finally toys and pans, casseroles, and non-stick pans, for example. Here again, you have regional discrepancies that are quite significant. Second point of conclusion, 60% of the respondents are not necessarily aware of the impact of endocrine disruptors on human health. So the relationship and the impact we know a bit of endocrine disruptors and some pathologies. We know they can have an impact on some types of cancer, on obesity, as well as diabetes, also fertility issues or development issues. These are 4 important issues, and endocrine disruptors do have an impact on these pathologies. In our survey, we also had pregnant women or women that has just given birth, and this is even more concerning because this public is of course more vulnerable and more exposed, and here again we see that the level of knowledge is insufficient. Another fact that is quite important. So the majority of the Belgians believe that if a product is marketed, well, it means it can be considered as safe. Therefore, the products containing dangerous substances are not traded, are not marketed, which is probably why one of the reasons why most of the Belgians do not believe this can have an impact on their health. As you can see, there's a lot of awareness-raising work to do on the presence of endocrine disruptors and then their impact on health. The survey also focused on the different sources of information. we can see that some respondents have already made some research. 21% of the respondents have done some research. Half of them have been looking up for some information on chemical substances as well. And here again, in this survey, we know that the category of pregnant women has made some research, but this is around 20%. So what also comes out of this survey is that overall, the respondents have quite a positive view on the information they have found on the web, mostly, not necessarily official website, but at least they know that there is more and more information being given on those endocrine disruptors, and also on the role to be played by GPs and pharmacists. So, what is the most important information for our members? First of all, the information should be reliable. It should be provided by a reliable and official source. Then it has to be scientifically supported, and it should be short, clear, and easy to understand. We also asked questions to the Belgians on their main concerns. We can see that about 40% of the Belgians are indeed concerned by the presence of endocrine disruptors and their impact on our health, but then 60%, so the majority, do not necessarily feel concerned. We can see that our concern grows. Of course, the more information you have and the better informed you are, the more concerned you become. So among those people that are informed, we can see that the level of concern increases, because we then reach 66% of the people being informed who are actually concerned by their exposure to endocrine disruptors and its consequences. One interesting question here, what we just saw shows that, well, knowledge enables awareness. Knowledge is, of course, an engine. And there is another question. The question is, can we change our behavior? Are the Belgians ready to change their behavior? 70% said yes. Of course, the motivation to change depends on the effort that has to be provided to do those changes. But well, what can be easily done is, of course, to implement organic alternative solutions for fruit, vegetables, cleaning products, pesticides. We have some doubts regarding the change of behaviors on toys, for example, and clothing. And there is also some reluctancy on getting information when doing a purchase, so trying to get information, and also, in stopping the use of plastic containers. So we can see that there is less, likeliness for those changes. Now, what are the expectations of the Belgians regarding this issue? The first expectation, very clearly, is that the respondents believe that those dangerous substances should be prohibited. There should be a ban. 3 out of 4 consumers believe, by the way, that health professionals should provide more information on chemical substances and their impact, and they also see a role for Mutuality to play, so a bridge role, so between the members and the political world, the administrations, and also an information role, counseling role on the behaviors to implement in order to reduce this exposure. So This gives you an idea and sets the frame, I would say, on the image and the knowledge of the Belgian population regarding endocrine disruptors. I would now like to take a few minutes to illustrate the 4 pillars of Mutuality Libre. And we, by the way, also based ourselves on other recommendations that have been made in the area of endocrine disruptors. The first pillar you've understood is awareness raising and information. It means that all the stakeholders have to be involved. As you can see, there's a role to be played by Mutuality, by health professionals, as well as all the educational sectors, Kindergezin, ONA, all the stakeholders of the association sector in Belgium for them to focus on this issue. And also, the Dr. Police will later on tell us more on what can be done as well to raise their awareness and for them to play a role.
Second topic is communicating clearly with a clear message, which is easy to understand. So we are here talking about a very complicated subject, difficult to understand. So we have to make sure that everyone is able to get the message, but we have to be loyal to the content, of course. Then I think we have to develop new ways of communicating. So leaflets, okay, but I think it's not enough. We have websites. There are many modern means of communication, so we have to use all of them. And I think we also have to be transparent. It's clear that people don't want to look up information. There should be good websites or even pictograms on products so that everyone can see straight away what it's all about and that they don't have to read the small letters. Now, I think that we shouldn't forget about vulnerable target groups in our society. We know that these groups are difficult to access, and so I think it's very important that we get in touch with all these people. Now, second topic is clear directives and recommendations from political level. I think that we don't have all the evidence yet, but we do have a lot of suspicion. We know that there is an impact on the health. And so I think it's very important that we warn people to be prudent. And so I think it's up to the authority to talk about prevention, to make sure that there is a legal framework. Minister Maron already had the possibility today to talk about the initiatives they are taken, but we also are discussing a national action plan in Belgium so that we can work out different measures, that we could go for real alternatives and that we can change the chemical products by other less harmful products. And I think there should be a list made up with our national leaders. Now, later on, Madame Jouan and Mrs. Roll from the Public Health Service will talk about what is written in the National Action Plan against EDCs. Then thirdly, innovation and research. We still have a lot to learn on EDCs, their presence, their impact, short-term, long-term. And the first element, it is to encourage research on identifying those substances. Then we also have to look at making sure that there is a real change and working with public tendering, for example. I think that it is a possibility if you want to strive against EDCs. Now, once we have all the information, we have to make sure that that information becomes accessible to all. And then we also have to participate to the European health and environmental research. A lot is being done. And I think it is necessary that we all work together at this European agenda. And of course, we have to gather data. We need more data. We need more research to really understand this phenomenon and its impact on our society. Now, as you've understood, the European level is a very important level. I think their clear directions and directives have to be voted. Now, of course, in Belgium, we have an ambitious national action plan. And I'm sure that this will also put pressure on the European level. And I think that in 2024, Belgium will be the president of the European Union. But even before that, we have countries who really are active on this field. France, for example, Sweden, Denmark, and of course also Belgium, which will be at the president in 2024. So I think it's very important that we start working with the coalition of the willing, those countries who want to go ahead with this topic. Now, I just gave you an overview of our survey, what our priorities are at the Mutuality Libres. Now, please go and have a look at this website. You can read our position paper. It is a summary of what is already happening at Belgium level. All the results of our survey are in there. So I wish you an interesting survey and don't hesitate to have a look at our website.
Hartelijk dank.
Thank you, Xavier Brenez, to have shown us the vision of the Mutuality Libre and to show us what will the people actually think and know about this matter.
Madame Sandrine Jouan qui nous rejoint ici dans le studio. Madame Jouan, vous êtes experte en toxicologie au SPF Santé Publique.
You're an expert in toxicology at the Public Health Service. Now, could you help us to understand the influence of these chemical substances? Which diseases or which health problems are associated with exposure to endocrine disruptors? Now, on this slide, you can see what has been said before. So those are chemical substances, and they have an impact on the endocrine system of our body, our hormonal system. So here you see the human body, and you have to know that hormones have an important function in some of our key processes. So in your metabolism, for example, growth, development of your brain, reproduction, stress, etc. So these hormones play a very important role in balancing out your hormonal system. And so if the EDCs come and disturb this whole functioning, you will get a couple of pathologies. Some of them have already been mentioned, cancers, for example, other pathologies linked to fertility, for example, reproduction issues, also autism, intellectual problems, but also obesity is one of the pathologies. So those are just pathologies we know of, but I'm sure that many other pathologies are linked to the EDCs. Now, we know that for the time being, Belgium is working on a national action plan. The federal authorities are working on it, the regional ones as well. But where are we at? Do you think that we will see some results soon? I'll try to show you the slide. Now, here you have the calendar. The decision to make that action plan was taken last year, December. The different ministers of health and environment agreed upon this. And so it is now the Public Health Service who is developing this national action plan. So we already had a lot of consultations with the different stakeholders. And also a consultation with the different political levels who are all going to work out measures and actions. Now, for the time being, we're still consulting the different authorities. So as you can see on this calendar, the consultations are up until the month of December. And then from December onwards, we will have the draft version of the National Action Plan. Then the document will be handed out to the different authorities. Then they have to validate it, of course. And then we hope that the final version, because I'm sure that there will be some amendments, will be ready in March 2021. And then in March 2021, we will talk to all the ministers, but not only the health and environmental ministers, but also agriculture, employment. Do you have the feeling that most of the ministers agree, or are there a lot of discussions? Well, in the first version of this document, we've already selected a couple of actions we got from the Belgian Senate. They wrote a report about EDCs. They recommended a couple of actions. So now in this consultation stage, the different authorities are talking about their own priorities, but also the budget they have available. And so now we are looking at which actions were already mentioned in the first report. And just as in France, for example, why can't we go towards other actions plans after this first one? Okay, but what is applicable to our political level is maybe also applicable to EDCs, because we're in Belgium, a complicated structure. So which levels can take the best decisions? Is it the federal one or the regional one? Now, here you have the different authorities we're talking to now, so at the federal level. But there you have an overview of the regional level. And just as I said, we really talk to all the different stakeholders, so health and environment, but also health products, the drug sector, social relations. Everyone is really involved at federal level. And then look at regional level. We work together with as many stakeholders as possible, because we think it's impossible that all stakeholders are at the table. Well, that's not easy, is it? No, it's rather complicated, but I think that we're heading in the right direction. We are going to make sure that there are good recommendations. And just as the previous speakers have said, certain actions will be integrated in already existing action plans. So, for example, we've mentioned the National Action Plan Environment and Health. Well, in the next national plan, we will have some recommendations. Also, the National Plan Against Pesticides, for example, there will also talk about EDCs. So we are also discussing with other ministries. Okay, so what do you think should be in this action plan? Well, actually, there are three main topics. The first pillar is everything that has to do with prevention. So that has to do with training, informing people, not only PDGs, but all health sectors, and then, of course, raising the awareness of all the target groups that might be the population, the whole population, but it also could be health professionals or other professionals who are exposed to EDCs in their daily work, for example. So that prevention pillar is very important. We really want to raise the awareness because we've seen it in the survey that a majority of the people is not even aware of the dangers yet. So I think the prevention pillar is very important, but of course it's not enough. We have to move on with the second pillar, and then we're looking at the competent authorities. They have to come up with legal instruments. So there we have the national plan, of course, but we'll also look at what's happening at European level, and we'll try to validate all of that. And we want to develop economic measures. Now, once this is done, we can go to the third pillar, and that third pillar is actually complementary with the two first pillars, and that's the scientific approach, because we already know a lot about EDCs, but it's not enough. It's not enough, so we have to continue. Yes, and on top of that, there are new products on the market every day who come from wherever in the world. Exactly. We also have to work out new testing methods to identify all these chemical substances. And which actions did Belgium already undertake? Well, you have to know that many of those actions are being worked out at European level. For example, when decisions are being taken, because the whole issue of EDCs, well, already for a couple of years, this is a hot topic, and that they are discussing it at European level. And so Belgium wants to make sure that this topic remains a hot topic at European level. For example, we have to identify all those substances. We have to make sure that in the legislation on pesticides and biocides that we also talk about EDCs. And then Belgium, for example, is part of a larger group of European countries who launched an internet website where you can find a whole list of EDCs which has already been identified. And that list is updated the whole time. Okay, are there any obstacles to undertake action now or to implement those European measures at Belgian level? Yes, there are some obstacles. Now, if you look at the European level, for example, those are decisions which take a long time to come up with, and that's a big problem, actually. It takes a very long time to come up with a decision. But things are changing, things are moving. And I think that we try to harmonize most of the European legislation and then to transpose it into Belgian legislation. But there's also a lack of visibility. I mean, you could think that Belgian authorities are not doing anything about it, but we're already working on this for many years. Already for a long time, we are really pushing this. We are pushing the agenda, but no one is really aware of it. No everyone knows it. Now, I think that's why it is so important to raise even more the awareness. And for the time being, everything that has been done is often done on an individual basis. There's no real network, no real partnership. And I think we should all come up with the same message. And I think that's maybe our priority for the time being, to make sure that all the stakeholders who are all involved put out the same message, and that everyone can hear that same message, not only from us, but from all our partners. And of course, we can adapt the message to the different target groups. Now, did the COVID crisis make it even more difficult because there's a national action plan, there was a timing? Well, it's true. It's true that because of COVID, some of the meetings took place a little bit later than we've planned. So the first stage of consultation will probably take a little bit longer because some of our health organizations were very busy with COVID. They just didn't have time. So that's why there is a little bit of a delay. But we do hope that in the near future, we can really talk about this subject to the whole population, to raise awareness at environmental level, at health level. Were you astonished when you looked at the figures that most of the people in Belgium are not even aware of the issues? No, I wasn't surprised. I'm French. And in France, in France, we are already talking about it for a much longer period of time. I think 20 years ago in France, they were already discussing it, and the whole population was aware of it. And when I moved to Belgium, I was surprised that no one was really aware of it. And you notice that in your daily life as well, that people do things differently than you? Well, I do notice that people are not well informed if they buy their products, they don't even look at it. But I think that people are more and more aware of this now. Now, you personally, did you change your habits? Yes. Yes, but I did that already a long time ago, already 20 years ago, because in France, we already talked about that was when you were born 20 years ago. No, not you. I was young, okay. But then they talked about makeup, for example. And I remember that when I went to the supermarket with my parents, they looked at the product list and ingredients, and I continued to do that. So yes, I do take necessary measures to limit my exposure. Yes, and now you are a real ambassador of that message. Would you like to add anything? No, I think that was it. Okay, thank you a lot, Mrs. Jouan. You gave us a clear image of what has been done already or what can be done in the future. Now, please stay with us.
Because now, ladies and gentlemen, we have, well, not now, but in the second part, we've got a Q&A with your input. So don't hesitate and wait to send your questions to our inbox. And we have a discussion with Sandrine, but also with the next lady.
Mrs. Jensen K. Jensen, Executive Director of HEAL, Health and Environment Alliance, and she's joining us all the way from France. Hello, Mrs. Jensen. Good afternoon. How are you?
Very well indeed. And it's just been wonderful listening to everybody's presentation beforehand. Really good.
Thank you so much for being with us. As we have seen in the survey presented by Xavier Brenez, endocrine disrupting chemicals can be a very complex concept that not everyone is familiar with. Can you briefly explain to us, we already got an idea, but why are they so dangerous and where can we find them in our environment and in our daily lives?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. As I said, my name's Jenon, and we at HEAL, the Health and Environment Alliance, have been actually working on raising awareness and promoting alternatives and asking for more urgent action for almost 20 years. So kind of like what Sandrine said before, this is a really key issue for our organization, for me personally. And we are concerned basically for many of the reasons that have already been stated before me, which is these are synthetic chemicals that we're finding in our bodies that have no reason to be there, and they are disrupting our hormone system. And as we've heard, they have many health impacts. And we've been listening to not only the scientists, but also the medical professionals who are here on this call with us and this symposium about these potential health impacts. For the European elections, 2 years ago, we had a campaign where our campaign, I don't know if it's going to be up there because they said they were going to put this illustration, but it basically was no more hormone disruptors and less diseases and disorders, whether it's neurological impacts, whether it's the hormone-related cancers of prostate, breast, and testicular cancer that we've heard about. That is why we're concerned, and that's what has been motivating us, and we're joining others in that. And there's 3 more reasons that have been touched upon here. First of all is because endocrine disrupting chemicals don't affect all groups the same. Some groups are more vulnerable than others, whether it's pregnant women, young babies, or adolescents. And that is worrying, that those vulnerable groups are being exposed and have a greater risk of having some disease or condition that nobody wants to have. Secondly, and I think, I'm not sure if Sandrine said this, but health impacts can occur even at low doses. And this is what we are constantly exposed to, is a mixture of doses and mixture of EDCs. So that's also concerning. And lastly, we're also concerned about the timing of the exposure. And what I mean by that is that what scientific studies have been showing is that early life exposure at a certain moment in early life doesn't necessarily have an impact that's immediate, but it may increase your risk of contracting serious diseases 20 years later, decades later, so later in life. So prevention now and urgent action now is really key for those 3 reasons. Yes, it's complex. I mean, I think I've heard that mentioned by many speakers, but I also believe that awareness is rising, and I have hope, because what we do know is that by preventing exposure and reducing our exposure, which we can do through policy changes, not only individual actions, that we are really able to prevent disease. Where can we find EDCs? I think I've heard quite a few places from the speakers, but they basically are everywhere. In our house, in our home, the Mutuality Libres and HEAL are releasing today a set of infographics on EDCs in and around the home that are available in 3 languages. So that can already give people a pointer on where we can find them, whether it's in the computer I'm using today to watch, to connect with you all, or in my clothing, or in the food packaging that we're using probably more than ever. There is not a way we can change some exposure, we can change our behavior, but we cannot totally eliminate exposure through changing our behavior. We actually also need policies to make sure they're not there in the first place. I think that's really an important message. And for more information, I would, not only recommend going to the Mutuality Libres, the Belgian and French government websites, but there is also the EDC Free Europe campaign website with information in 7 languages, including the 3 official Belgian languages, from our campaign partners. And this coalition called EDC Free Europe, HEAL has been one of the founding organizations to bring together civil society almost a decade ago now. Really, it's been that long, to raise awareness and urge more rapid action to reduce our exposure. And I think we're making some big advances in the last year or so, and so that's really positive. But definitely can recommend people could go and check out that for all kinds of, and especially the public and people who don't know much about EDCs and want to just get a grasp of what it's all about.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. We are also going to give all the information to the audience, of course. So any website that is mentioned will be passed on to the audience. So don't you worry, our viewers will get the information. Now, in your opinion, there's an obvious, a great need to talk about this subject, to create awareness. Now, how has the conversation surrounding EDCs been evolving over the past few years? What has been the role of health and disease prevention community people, patient groups, for instance, in bringing this issue to the forefront?
Yes, I think awareness has been, raising around EDCs, and the conversation, I would say, in a nutshell, is that there has been, I find, a rapid evolution on the amount of science and scientific studies that are being done on endocrine disrupting chemicals. So I think that's very positive. The EU is actually funding a whole cluster of EDC projects to find out more information. So, and the science keeps telling us that there are health impacts. And I think that's just, that body of evidence is getting stronger and stronger. However, on the other hand, it hasn't led to as urgent of action as we believe is necessary. There has been a delay of bringing out the EU's own EDC strategy. In 1999, the EU was a front runner on EDCs by bringing out a strategy at that time, which really was one of the first in the world. And we've been waiting and calling for this new strategy to come out, taking into account some of the science, some of the things we've learned, some of the places where they're being used. And that has been a big delay for many reasons. I would say one of them is often that there are some people who are not industrial sectors who are not happy to see that go forward because there will be money lost. But on the other hand, it is now what is good about the conversation and the evolution is that the EU did adopt EDC criteria for 2 types of sectors. So for pesticides, which we've heard about, and for biocidal products. So that is very good news that there is progress on this, but that leaves out of the equation all of the other sectors where we are finding endocrine disrupting chemicals and where we may be exposed. So I think, and I will get to you later about, I think there's some good news with the chemical strategy for sustainability, but what else has really changed in my view is how the health frame and the health sector and various health groups have really gotten much more interested and engaged because they see it as a disease prevention tool, that action on environmental policy and in reducing our pollution can support bringing down diseases and helping our populations be healthier. And they've been really inspiring. I want to share 3 examples from you with you. The WHO has set up a chemicals roadmap, and this gives, I think, a lot of strategy and direction toward the health sector for working on chemicals, including EDCs. And one example that's very relevant to what's being discussed today is the work that we have been doing with the International Federation of Gynecologists and Obstetricians. So this is the global institute where they have national chapters. So they'll have one in Belgium, they'll have one in France, they'll have one in Spain, and we've just released a whole set of educational infographics on 10 tips to reduce EDCs and chemicals in pregnancy. So again, this is really exciting because they are doing what we've heard we need to do, is raise awareness and share that. And this is for their midwife's office, their clinicians' offices. A second example is the European Cancer Leagues. Again, how can we prevent cancer? Through action on environment and EDCs. And they have been, again, a forerunner, and because they've come out already in 2017, brought this EDC issue to the European Parliament, and now are taking much more action around the policy opportunities that are available at EU level and national level. And the last example is right now what we're experiencing. This is really a testimony of the healthcare, not-for-profit and mutual insurers who really have such an important role to play, because they're not only taking care of us, they're also trying to protect and promote health. And that's a really nice goal and a role for them to play in this. And the last thing I'd like to leave you with, because again, it's individuals who also make an important contribution to moving things forward. And I've met so many inspiring medical doctors, health professionals, endocrine experts, and one of them is from Belgian Zone. His name is Jean-Pierre Berginio. And he was a forward-thinking pediatrician and endocrinologist who made a huge difference, not only, I'm sure, to his patients in the Belgian scene, but also in creating a lot of support and movement and awareness raising on the global scene, so that we're moving forward on EDCs and at EU level. And, you know, it's those inspiring people out there that also make a difference. So it's a message of hope for all of us to think that we each have a role to play. And he has a wonderful book. He passed away. He's no longer with us, but we remember him fondly, and we're holding up his torch.
And that is exactly why we are so happy today that we have so many medical doctors attending this symposium. So, right. Now, talking about the EU, which EU member states could you say are leading by example today? And then are there any countries outside of Europe that we can also take inspiration from in that domain?
So I would say, you know, EU chemical policies, which actually will make a difference in reducing exposure, are actually advanced and decided by the member states themselves and European parliaments, along with the Commission. So when you talk about asking, are member states leading by example? I think they are leading by example by ensuring that we have very strong and ambitious EU policies. And here, Belgium, you know, I think is leading by example with its national action plan that it's going forward with. But I have 4 ways that I think that countries can lead by example within the EU. First of all, environmental ministers, health ministers, economy ministers actually putting pressure and helping the European Commission to bring out these EDC regulatory reforms. Because it's not, EU is not one person in Brussels, it's the combination of everyone. And so countries who are supportive, who are active, make a big difference. Member states can also, or countries can provide resources from their own national agencies and ministries to actually assess all of these EDC chemical dossiers that are decided on at EU level. So we need to make sure the resources are there and brought forward. Thirdly, they can go further than the EU when they think progress is not far enough. And here, Denmark has done something quite interesting where they have gotten the PFAS chemicals, also known as forever chemicals. They're taking them out of food contact materials or food packaging, because again, that's an area where there are things in the pipeline now, but it's very outdated, and many EDCs are allowed in food contact materials or food packaging. And France, of course, I mean, I think people know about the example of France, not only for its national action plan, but also for the work that it has done on bisphenol A and many other chemicals where they have been a leading voice in pushing forward action. And I think the last thing that really member states could be doing, so we've heard Belgium, France, I think, I don't have them all in my head, but there are a few countries who actually have national action plans or have parts of it into a wider environment and health action plan. So I think having an EDC action plan is really an important way forward. And I hope that Belgium is able to share that with other countries in Central and Eastern Europe, other French-speaking, Dutch-speaking countries, and that is, to me, is a very important way forward, and also taking advantage of when a country is holding the EU presidency. We know France and Belgium will both be holding the presidency but in the next years, and that's also an opportunity to show how action in country level really makes a difference, not only in the country, but within Europe and with our wider environment.
Yeah, indeed. Talking about opportunities, the EU just published its vision for a sustainable strategy for chemicals. I think it's part of the Green Deal, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is this a window of opportunity to really do something about the issue of endocrine disruptors?
Yes, I find it's a wide open window. It's a wide open public health window to prevent disease and to move and transition our society into a non-toxic one. So I definitely, I wanted to bring it up earlier because sometimes I'm saying, yes, we haven't had enough action. Well, actually, not even a month ago in October, the Commission published its Chemical Strategy for Sustainability, which is really it's an ambitious roadmap and chemical initiative. And we haven't seen, there has not been anything for 20 years. And the fact that this is really a once in a decade opportunity to look at this roadmap, the strategy has so many actions in it, not only on EDCs. There's a whole annex on EDCs, but I'm not encouraging everybody to go and read it. You might want to look at some summaries. But I think if we can actually implement the commitments that are in that strategy, and that's what we need to do very urgently and continue over the next years, that we will really be able to reduce our exposure to EDCs, and we'll be able to set track our economy, our society on a different trajectory. Three things that where there are commitments on endocrine disrupting chemicals, which actually relate to what people have been saying so far. One thing is to ban EDCs in consumer products, such as toys, cosmetics, food packaging. So to work to that where we no longer allow those. And, sometimes we think, well, why are they there? We're not allowing them in pesticides and biocides. So why are they ending up in our why would they be in toys, or why would they be in our cosmetics? So I think that's very good, commitment. Hopefully that moves very quickly. They are also have committed to establish legally binding hazard identification criteria beyond the pesticides and biocides, because if we don't have that criteria, then we can't move on getting these EDCs regulated in other sectors. And then the last thing, which might be a bit techie for some people, but I still think it's really important, and that is they have introduced a specific EDC category for substances of very high concern in the REACH legislation. So what I've understood from my colleagues, because I'm not the expert on that, is that this will make it much easier to assess these chemicals and then restrict them or get them off the market if they are endocrine disrupting chemicals.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
so much for this very clear explanation and for being with us for now. Don't leave us just yet, because we want to hold your enthusiasm in this symposium for the Q&A after the break, and also you will be participating in the debate, and I'm really looking forward to having you there. So stay with us a little while longer. But thank you for now.
And thank you.
Ik stel voor, dames en heren.
Ladies and gentlemen, I suggest that the very interesting presentations that we've had so far, that we've give you some time to digest them. So you have a 10-minute break so that you can go and have a coffee, stretch your legs, things like that. But do not go away too far from your screens, because you have the possibility to network. You have a tab where it says face-to-face, where you can contact each other. I've been told in the meantime that quite a large group of people are watching the Zoom link, and maybe during the break you can switch to the website and follow this symposium on the website, because there you have a translation.
Sur le link.
So if you are looking at the Zoom link, then there's no simultaneous translation. So you have to go to the website. If you go to the website of the Mutualités Libres, you will get simultaneous translation.
Face-to-face, cela vous permet de connecter.
On the website, you see a symbol at the right top. If you click on it, face-to-face, it's called, you can talk to us. And we'll see you after the break in 10 minutes.